The seconds honestly looked like they were just boom, 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 chugging along. And the most impressive aspect of the A158W is the affordable Casio A158W a relic of the past or a timeless treasure? Well, we're about to find out, because I'll be strapping this one on for the next 7 days straight for our beloved Watch of the Week series, which by the way has been ticking for about a year and a half now. Here it is. Looks good to me. Oh yeah, doesn't that look absolutely beautiful in this all silver colorway? Now there are a couple of different colorways available as well, but the silver classic really appealed to me. There is an interesting looking stainless steel bracelet, which I have not seen this type before, and it appears as though we have one of my favorite clasp locking mechanisms, which is actually the same one they use on the Casio A700W, which we are wearing right now. And as you'll see, while the bracelet's a bit different, we do have that same clasp. Now the case of the watch itself is not stainless steel. This is actually just a plastic, unfortunately, and the lens is also made of a plastic resin. Oh yeah. And I can already tell this thing is going to be a stain magnet just based on touching that a little bit there. Flipping it over to the case back, you'll see that we have module number 593 installed, which for those of you who may recognize that, it's because it's also part of the Casio F91W. If I flip this one over, check it out. Also module number 593. So it would appear that these have the exact same internals. If you would like to see my full review on the F91W, you can check that one out here. Now back over to the case back, you'll also notice the water resistant text. Now Casio advises that this is just for everyday use, but you should not take it swimming. But I will be putting this to the test by taking it into a hot shower each day. So I can't wait to see how this holds up. Now we are of course going to bang this on for a wrist check, but one thing I've noticed about the little straps here, guys, this stainless steel bracelet, it's rather rigid, okay? Check that out. It kind of holds itself up just like that. Whereas if you'll take a look at my current watch, this is my A700W. Check it out. Look at how flexible these straps are. I really like that because it's nice and comfy. So let's chuck it on and see how it feels. Much too big. Okay, very loose, but there you go. That's how it looks on my 6.5 inch or 16.5 centimeter wrist. Now let's also adjust this a little bit, which is very easy to do, by the way, for those who don't know. All you have to do is pop up this piece here, which I'm just going to use a little screwdriver. So check it out. I have this specific new watch case back remover tool, which I got for another project, which I think should be pretty perfect for this use case. So we can just put that under there, lift it just like that. And now we can slide this and lock it wherever we want. So let's give it a test here. Maybe just here. So we're going to flip that down and lock it in. Oh, now it's actually bending, which means it might be one where you have to lock it between two sections. Let's see here. Okay, there we go. So yeah, as I was saying, the reason I got this new... Oh yeah, that's a great fit. Look at that. So the reason I got this new tool is because I wanted to test removing the case back of my Humpbuck Rebel Pilot, which we weren't able to do. If you've seen the review video for this one here, you'll remember that I don't actually have a way to get that case back off. So if you do want to see that, make sure you're a subscriber. But yeah, it does really, honestly guys, there is not a lot of micro adjust. You really have to clip this down between two particular points. So, you know, you may get a fit that's not exactly what you were hoping for. All right, so taking a look at the thickness, you know, it's not too thick. It's definitely not too thick, and it feels good on the wrist. But that being said, it is definitely not as thin as the A700W. So definitely the A158 there is not quite as thin as the A700W. Now the A158, you're looking at 8.6 mils there, okay? A700W, 6.2. So quite a substantial difference there in wrist presence. Now, in terms of the layout of the buttons and the functionality, it's exactly the same as the F91W, okay? So if we go through the modes, we have an alarm, we have a stopwatch, and we can edit the home time, just like that, okay? Now, obviously, I have to do my signature stopwatch check to try and stop this on 10 seconds. And if we do, you've got to ram that like button. But I want to do a little bit of setup and test, because today I'm going to do it with my eyes closed, okay? So I promise you, all right, my eyes are now officially closed, and we're gonna go for it here. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go. 10. How did we do? Oh, 1068. That's pretty impressive, guys. Like that video. Okay, now one other thing I've noticed, guys, is these buttons are a little bit mushy. See, I've pressed it there and it didn't really happen. Okay, now I also wanted to do a backlight test. All right, so let's give that a shot now. And I suspect the backlight will be as bad as the F91, which, for a reminder, that is what it is. So here we go with the A158. And that is, as we expected, exactly the same. Here it is, side by side with the F91W. Okay, now guys, this really makes a compelling case for the A700W, which we looked at earlier, which is otherwise identical. But you ready for this backlight? Check it out. Boom. Look at how nice and even that one is. So, you know, there is a bit of a price jump to go from an A158 to an A700W, but for those of you who value the backlight, you know, these results speak for themselves. And speaking of price, the A158 is actually on sale right now and is extremely affordable. Almost as low in price as the F91W. So if you can imagine that, the iconic F91W, for almost the same price, you're getting a stainless steel version of it. So at the moment, very, very good value. So if you would like to get your hands on one, I'll be leaving a link for you in the description below, or visit genie.us/A158W. Oh, and if you already own an A158W or you're a fan of the watch, you are not going to believe what came out in Japan literally just today. Check it out. It's an A158 Casio wall clock. Isn't this thing incredible? Now, as far as I know, they are only out in Japan, and I have not seen any for sale on the secondary market, which I've been refreshing since today. But if I do manage to find them, I'll also leave a link to these in the description below. Now, for anyone new to the Watch of the Week series, which I think we're up to episode like 45 now, which is pretty cool, it's very simple. I'll be committing to wearing this watch for 1 week straight to gather my findings, and then I'll check back in with my review for you. So let's start. Actually, wait, there's one last thing that I want to do, and that is to add a screen protector. Now, this is something that I would always recommend for a watch with a plastic or resin lens. I would just hate to have some scratches on here at the end of the week. And these things, you buy them in a pack of 3 or whatever, they're like $1 each. So I would definitely recommend these. And if you do want to pick them up, available for almost all of the popular models, visit genie.us/protect, linked below. Oh yeah, what a perfect alignment. Take off out. Oh yeah, look at that. And the peace of mind is just, oh, I'm so glad knowing this isn't going to scratch over the next week. Actually, all 3 of these watches that I've shown you today now have screen protectors on, even though the A700W, I recently found out, has a mineral crystal, so it doesn't even need one. But anyway, if you are too late and you've already got some scratches on one of your watches, I've actually got the perfect solution for you. So make sure you check out the short video here of how to use Polywatch to get rid of any existing scratches. Alrighty, with our watch nice and protected, we are ready to take on the world for 7 days. So let's get started, and I'll see you in a week. We are back after 1 whole week of wearing the Casio A158W, and Bubble is here to remind you to ram that like button if you're enjoying the video so far. Aren't you, Bubble? So we are about to go through my findings to decide whether the Casio A158W is really outdated or not. Oh, and stick around to the end because I had a very strange experience one morning with this watch that basically altered my perception of time entirely. So let's start with the cons. These are the things that I didn't like about the Casio A158W. And number one on the list was arm hair pulling. Now, I will admit that it was only on the first day that I wore this that it happened, but I did in fact find that this bracelet did pinch and pull my arm hairs. Next up, the buttons did feel a little bit mushy, okay? I'm not sure how to describe it, but they just don't feel like a clean press. So I do have my F91W here to compare it to, and let's just see. I mean, yeah. I don't know. I know they're the same module inside, guys, but just something about the A158 doesn't quite feel the same. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, do let me know below. Next up, and it's only a minor one, but I'm not the biggest fan of the way the buckle of the clasp sits on the wrist. I would much prefer it if it was more centered, like so. But as you can see, when I do that, it kind of tugs the watch up and above. But not the biggest issue in the world. Next up, it's the genuine Casio button check, all right? I wasn't able to figure out how to do it, because normally, look, if you press all three buttons, hang on. I don't know, nothing seems to be happening there, guys. Is it just me, or does this particular module not have it? Let's have a quick look on the F91 here. If we do all three buttons. Yeah, check it out. Look at that. So, well, maybe we can do it with the... Come on. Oh, yes, there we go. So it does, in fact, work. You just got to press down quite hard. Maybe it was those mushy buttons I talked about earlier. Next up, I discovered that the housing or the bezel of the A158W, as well as being a fingerprint magnet, check it out, these big greasy old fingerprints there, but it's also not an exact match with the color of the bracelet. As you can see, we have kind of a vertical brushed finish on the bracelet, but then you've just got this glossy mirror finish on the bezel, and it just doesn't quite line up. Now, I did actually order a replacement strap to be like my favorite type of the A700, where is it? Just here. And I've actually ordered, because look, even this one's brushed. I did order what appeared to be a shinier one, so I will install that when it arrives. So make sure you're a subscriber so you don't miss that. And my only other minor pet peeve about this watch, guys, is just the lower functionality than more modern Casios, and that's about it. And it's to be expected, right? I mean, this is basically, as we discussed, an F91 in a fancy housing. So you know exactly what you're getting. You get the time, the date, the day. You do get one alarm and a stopwatch. So really, I mean, it is quite capable overall, but just not as much as compared to some of the more modern releases. Now, just before we get into the pros, I wanted to say two perceptions that people commented on this watch as I wore it over the 1 week. The first one was from my wife, and she said, "It clips your fur and it looks painful. Looks like all your other watches." So let's unpack that a little bit. First of all, she refers to my arm hair as fur, and that must have been on the first day she did see it was pinching it. But, it does hurt a bit to say that it looks like all my other Casios, but I like to think it is a little bit different. The second comment I got was from my brother, and he said, quote, "Isn't that the terrorist watch that Osama wore?" No, that was the similar but different F91W that Osama famously wore. So you're on the right track, but no, he is not quite this fancy. Now let's get into the pros. These are the things that I liked about the Casio A158W. And starting up first, just look at this thing. It is classy, it's retro, it is iconic, and I just cannot get over how much of an absolute pleasure it is to wear this watch. What a beauty. And I reckon because of that, it is a little bit dressier and a little bit more formal and therefore more versatile as a wearing option than the F91W. Next, and back by popular demand, it's the Sleepy Goat Alarm Test. I am pleased to report that this alarm is bright, loud, and confusing. On the first day that it went off, it was hard to stop, and I was honestly fumbling around trying to get it to stop. Let's just say it does its job well, but anyway, let's bring the mic in and show you a demo of just how loud this thing is. Really quite impressive if you asked me. Next up, and this might shock some of you, but I'm going to say the backlight is okay. And what I mean by that is, yes, it does have the same backlight of the F91 that everyone loves to roast, but I can attest that in actual pitch black conditions at night, the backlight, as weak as it appears to be, does actually get the job done. And the most impressive aspect of the A158W is two areas of resilience and strength. The first is the water resistance. Now, as we discussed, guys, this thing is rated just simply water resist, which Casio determines as 30 meters, therefore safe to wash your hand and go in the rain, but not safe for submersion. So obviously over the 1 week that I was testing this, I wore this into a hot shower every single day and it had no issues whatsoever. And in fact, on one of the days, I even fully submerged this in a hot bath for probably over half an hour. And as you can see, it's still going strong. So Casio have really underrated the water resistance performance of the A158W. And the second example of strength of this watch is that I wore it to beach volleyball. Now, what I was honestly expecting to happen was exactly the same as what happened with my A700W. And if you'll remember from a previous video, what we discussed is that as I was wearing this one, okay, it actually snagged on the net when I was going to hit the ball and it completely blew out and broke the buckle. And in fact, this is a replacement strap that I'm wearing. Well, guess what? With the A158W, I had no such issue. Now, I did wear it what I felt to be a little bit looser than normal throughout my volleyball game because obviously, guys, when you dig the ball, which is where you hit it like that, you know, your arm kind of tenses up a little bit, and I know that I didn't want it to burst. So over all of the games that I played while wearing this watch, the worst that happened was this little buckle came off just like that. It didn't go anywhere. That's all that happened. And I had to simply clip it back in. But I will say that I noticed after the game that the watch felt overall looser, which means I suspect that this little buckle actually slid down a little bit, even though it's supposedly locked in place. But overall, I'm quite impressed with the resilience. So with all of this in mind, guys, the big question is the Casio A158W outdated? Well, as we say, it's not the most functional Casio, but the simplicity is its beauty. It's basically just a fancy version of the F91W, which, mind you, is like the best-selling watch of all time. So I'm going to say that while it doesn't have all the extra bells and whistles that some of the newer Casios has, this classy watch is far from outdated. So should you pick one up over something like the more modern A700W? Well, personally, I would highly recommend the A700W, which we did do a full review on here if you missed it. However, even though this has got a more slender design and a better backlight, I would still say that the A158W is being sold for half the price. So it really depends on how much you value that backlight, okay? Do you think having a better backlight and being a little bit thinner is worth doubling the price? That's really up to you to decide. So I would love to hear your opinion below. Do you think that the A700W trumps the A158W? And do you think this thing is outdated? And I'll tell you what, I went from thinking, oh, this is just going to be a chunky, thick A700W to really appreciating it over the 1 week that I wore it. I'm so glad that I put the time to spend with the A158W. Just look at how beautiful this thing is. And honestly, guys, being on sale right now, you're not going to believe it, but the A158W is basically only a couple of dollars more than the ubiquitous Casio F91W. So if you ask me, that's a great time to get a classier option of the famous F91 for a really good price. So if you would like to pick one up, I'll be leaving a link for you in the description, or go to genie.us/A158W. Oh, and look at this, guys. Check it out. I've got some of the watches from my backlog down here. And what's this right here? This is the Casio A168, which is the improved version of the Casio A158. And I am really excited to review this at some point, so do make sure you are a subscriber. Now, just before you go anywhere, I'd love to share this strange occurrence that happened on one of the mornings when I was wearing this Casio A158W. Now, I think it was on the first night that I wore it, actually. The first morning. So what happened is, when I woke up, the alarm went off. I looked at the clock to tell what time it was. And, you know, you have a look at the seconds there, it's beating at the normal rate. But for some reason, guys, that morning, the seconds honestly looked like they were just boom, 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 chugging along. And I honestly could not believe my eyes. It felt like time was going way faster. So what I did is I actually closed my eyes and I counted to 10. Now, you've seen me, I always do the, stopping, trying to stop it on 10 seconds or whatever, okay? You know that I'm pretty good at estimating 10 seconds, and I've always, been able to estimate it pretty well. But this morning, I counted to 10 with my eyes closed, and I looked again. It had been 12 or 13 seconds, right? Because the actual time was just ticking way faster than I expected. So I was thinking about it. Is this a known thing? Has anyone else ever noticed this? Like when you wake up in the morning, your perception of time, it goes faster. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences with this below. And I challenge you, tomorrow morning, set your alarm on your digital watch, and just when you wake up, have a look at those seconds and tell me if you notice that it's going faster than you would expect. A massive shout out to our Goat Crew channel members for supporting the channel. You absolute legends. Here's a link to our Discord channel where we talk about watches, modding, share wrist checks, and more. Come and join us. Here's some more great content for you to watch next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next review. Good girl, Bubble.